Coach Kurt. Let's talk about striking in Taiho Jutsu, or modern translation, control tactics for law enforcement or combatives. If you don't know what Taiho Jutsu is, it's basically the Japanese martial art, literally translates to arresting techniques, arresting methods, system, blah, blah, blah. But there's a lot of people who don't think that, and just to be clear, I practice what I call modern police concepts. It's not traditional Taiho Jutsu. Strictly out of, it has to be that way because I am a law enforcement officer in America and I have to follow certain case laws, Graham v. Connor, Scott v. Harris, Tennessee v. Gardner. Guys, I just did a video on Graham v. Connor. Look it up. It tells you all about objective reasonable standard set by the Supreme Court. But a lot of people don't think you're allowed to strike in Taiho Jutsu or, in modern law enforcement. And that's just absolutely not true. The standard is it's got to be objectively reasonable. It can be extremely reasonable to strike, and there is a time and a place for striking. Everything from full-on trying to knock somebody out all the way down to what we call distraction striking. And I generally speaking, emphasize a lot of the latter, distracting, off-balancing, redirecting. These are the things that I'm trying to accomplish with my strikes. And on screen, you see that I'm practicing the flinch response, or I call instinct-based tactics, where you're entering against what someone would throw a haymaker at you, and it's a great way to defend against that. But I am defending using it as a defense method and a striking method. You see I'm also hitting the collarbone with it. I'm emphasizing an overhook or an underhook. You see that in this example. And I'm practicing knees, elbows, punching, kicking. But I'm keeping it simple. The kind of strikes you do use in law enforcement, or in this case Taiho Jutsu, should be fairly down-to-earth, simple, gross motor skill type training. I'm a big fan of what you just saw on screen, the push kick or the foot jab or the front kick. Lead leg is my favorite. Rear leg is also extremely effective, but there's a time and a place for both. And you see how I'm emphasizing using the striking to get into the clinch range. Why? Because in law enforcement, when you're fighting somebody like this, it behooves you to get them to the ground and handcuff them. So listen, this is very applicable for self-defense as well, but generally speaking in self-defense, you don't want to go to the ground unless you have to or you choose the right time. But we all know, in reality, you don't always get a choice. So you need to be extremely adapted in the clinch zone, in the ground fighting arena. You have to have at least enough good grappling skills to get back on your feet. Here you see a Coach Amanda, a training partner of mine. She's a fellow control tactics instructor. We're practicing a lot of striking in and out of the clinch. She is a Muay Thai and boxing expert, and that's her area of expertise. And we were working on some clinch range stuff where I'm giving her bad guy energy and she's striking her way in and out. I mean, we're not sparring or anything. I'm giving her like what I would call bad guy energy, athleticism. And you see how she uses her strikes to get in and out to do her damage, and then she gets out. She's 5'3", super athletic, but she's smaller. So she's going to want to utilize that bat belt, and she's doing a really good job of using the strikes strategically. She's just not going off. I know that her strikes are fast, but a practiced eye would see that, okay, she's being tactical. She's using the strikes to get in and to defend herself, to get into the clinch range and out of the clinch range. Striking in general for law enforcement and for grappling in general and for Taiho Jutsu, it doesn't matter what you call it or goes by any other name. Each discipline has its own reasons for existing and methods to exist and how they get in and out. But striking your way in and out of grappling range is extremely effective. You see it in MMA all the time. If you do Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu, chances are you're not practicing this. So it's something I recommend you practice on the side. If you are practicing something like Judo, again, Judo doesn't practice strikes. Now, traditionally, it was pushed that you would practice strikes separately from Randori. Check out the screen. You'll see what I'm talking about. So, what am I talking about here? Again, I call them V8 strikes. You've seen me say that in previous videos. I could have had a V8, the palm strike. I jokingly call them that, but it's not just a palm strike. It's punches. I'm talking about keeping it simple, stupid method like you saw on the screen. Your jab, cross, your palm strikes, your lead leg and rear leg front kicks. I do practice roundhouse kicks, and I have used them in the real world. I remember one time I had I was in the booking area, and a person was coming up on me pretty harshly, and his hands came up like he was ready to fight me, and I hit him with the classic roundhouse kick to the thigh. He dropped like a bag of used car parts, just hit the ground, grabbing his leg. If you don't know how to defend against a roundhouse kick to the thigh, and if you're not used to getting that common peroneal strike, it could be very painful and very distracting, Charlie horse type situation in your leg. And it worked out. So I'm not suggesting for a second you wouldn't use roundhouse kicks. I'm just not a huge fan of the circular attacks in self-defense and for law enforcement. I like the straight attacks, the the front kick, the lead side kick. I'm a big fan of the lead front kick. You've seen a lot of videos where I emphasize that. The rear front kick, and again, I do a lead leg roundhouse kick to the knee area, to the calf area, but it's more of a distracting, off balancing, redirecting type motion where I'm trying to get them to go a certain way or move a certain way. I'm also a huge fan of using the head. In this case, I'm demonstrating headbutts. Now, I like to emphasize the head, kind of like a grappler would emphasize the head, not just straight up headbutts, although those are completely acceptable in the right context. Again, if it's objectively reasonable and you can articulate why you chose to do something, it's completely valid in law enforcement. But as you see, that I like to use the head like a grappler uses the head as a third point of contact in the clinch, and I like to use it like on the jawline and redirecting their head. And you can be aggressive with it. You can pop them pretty good with the top of your head. You don't want to use your forehead or the bridge above your nose. That will split your head open. But I like to use the head offensively in a grappling sense. Here you see me demonstrating the typical tie clinch. And, see I'm pinching the shoulders in, or the elbows in, and controlling the head. Where the head goes, the body will follow. But you can see, you can articulate easily why you would do something like that. For example, there you clinch with them, they reach out and grab your gun, and so if you let go to secure your weapon, which is what is normally taught, great and dandy. But you can absolutely use that headbutt to get them off of you. That would be a reason why you could do that, just as an example. And again, I said that I prefer not to use roundhouse kicks in law enforcement, but I believe in being proficient, and there's a time and a place for everything. And here I am practicing roundhouse kick, more of your kickboxing, Muay Thai way of throwing it. I come from a Hapkido background, and when I studied Hapkido back in the day, in the 90s, the kicking was more Shotokan-ish, maybe Tang Sudo. Definitely not as Korean Taekwondo-ish as you see a lot today. There's so much cross-training in Korea. So you see a lot of Korean martial arts that are Hapkido black belts, but they're also Taekwondo black belts. And so you see a lot of crossover. But back on subject, I'm using the roundhouse kick here. It can be a very effective kick, very devastating kick. I'm kicking with the lower part of the shin. I try to avoid kicking with the flat of the foot if I can. There is a time and a place, especially if you're wearing patrol boots. A lot of times you're wearing boots on the job. And here I am demonstrating said roundhouse kick in a context in which I believe it is applicable for law enforcement or self-defense in general. You see that I'm going to the outside of the leg, the common peroneal area, the inside of the leg. These are, clusters of nerve endings. I'm not suggesting you should or shouldn't kick the knee. You need to articulate why you would do that. But you see that I'm doing that almost like a Philly roll and doing that lead leg kick. That's a great way to distract somebody, to off-balance them, to get them to step a certain ways, so you can follow up with your roundhouse punch or your jab, or in this case, I'm entering for a clinch range. A lot of what I do is for entering the clinch range. And here's an example of using that lead leg, not as a kick, but as a grappling hook, basically. And I've used this in sparring. it is effective. I've even used it in jiu-jitsu where I reach out and hook the back of their knee with my leg, and you pull the leg forward. You see the body motion I'm doing. And it's a skipping motion, just like I'm doing here on screen. You're skipping up just like you would in any martial art. You're doing that skip, and it's not a powerful kick. That lead leg low roundhouse kick isn't powerful. It's made to distract, off balance, redirect, that kind of thing. And here I am demonstrating that hooking method. And again, I'm saying the Philly roll. You want to get low because they're going to come across with that jab or the cross, and you don't want your head in range when you do that. You see that hook? I off balance him. I could use it as a way to enter or just off balance him long enough so I can punch. And since we're talking about the clinch range, here I am working on the wooden dummy. Again, I do not do Wing Chun, never have done Wing Chun. I have a Kaiji Kembo Tumpai method background. And that is when I dabbled with the Wing Chun dummy or the wooden dummy. So the technique you're seeing is the way I do it. It doesn't look anything like Wing Chun because it isn't. But the wooden dummy can be a great way to practice the trapping range. Now, trapping is a split second in a fight, so you don't want to put a shitload of energy into it. Like Wing Chun puts a lot of energy in a trapping range. Now, Wing Chun is designed to basically fight in a phone booth. It is a close-range self-defense system, so it's very applicable in the clinch range. So I do like to practice the redirecting and trapping with the wooden dummy. But it's for a purpose. I'm trying to get into the clinch range for a clinch, body lock, takedown, or what have you. And top right, you see the kind of kicks that I prefer. I would emphasize that they're like a Southern-style kung fu kicking, a lot of like kicking with the heel, the oblique kick that you see John Jones use a lot in the UFC. Kicking in that method is a great way for kicking on the street. It gives you more stability. It's quick. It's low. I don't emphasize kicking above the diaphragm anymore in my life. I'm not young and flexible anymore anyway, so it doesn't really matter. There is a time and a place for practicing that stuff. It's great. But as you can see, I like the spring arms on my wooden dummy, and that's because it gives kind of that redirecting feel that you would with a live opponent. Again, this is a means to an end specifically designed for that close range, clinch range drilling. I don't spend a crud load of time on the wooden dummy, but it definitely has a time and a place in your training, and I'd recommend that you dabble with it. Anyway, please like, subscribe, and share. Everybody take care, and please stay safe.
Let's roll. Hey, let's be careful out.